18.5 million Americans are sitting inside a severe weather threat zone today across 3 different states by Tuesday afternoon. 474,000 of those people land inside the enhanced risk bullseye. No joke at all. 50-plus knots of effective wind shear are already primed across northern New England to build supercells from scratch. 3 completely separate storm clusters are firing up on the same day. Florida, Arizona, and Montana all in play. That ridge baking the northern plains is bottling up energy right now, but the lid blows off Tuesday night. Because when we get to Tuesday's New England setup, you'll see a storm recipe that forecasters do not take lightly. Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk covering more than 72,000 square miles of the country right now. An expansive upper-level ridge is locked over the northern plains, so severe weather stays pinned to the outer edges. That ridge keeps the atmosphere capped across the Midwest and Great Plains, so today's threats stay regional, not nationwide. Down in Florida, a hot and humid air mass has loaded the atmosphere with serious moisture streaming in from the Gulf. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms are forming across the entire peninsula today. Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, all watching the afternoon sky. Strongest cells in Florida are capable of gusty, damaging winds, so straight-line wind damage is the main concern down there. Miami sits in the general thunderstorm zone this afternoon, and sea breeze convergence is going to kick off even more development. Extreme southern South Carolina clips into the marginal risk, so Charleston is not completely in the clear this afternoon. So for Florida today, organized storm chance from midday through sunset, with damaging wind gusts from the most organized cells. Dale in Toledo is checking in. Ohio clears today, but Tuesday brings a completely different story to your region. Dale. Over in Arizona, thunderstorms are already firing off the eastern terrain and spreading westward toward the desert floor. Phoenix and Tucson both sit inside the marginal risk zone today, and Flagstaff catches the first mountain-initiated cells. Main risk in Arizona is gusty, damaging outflow winds blasting ahead of those high desert thunderstorm complexes through the evening. If you're driving west on Interstate 10 in southern Arizona tonight, those scattered strong storms will cross your path. Meanwhile, a heat advisory is in effect across central, east central, north central, and northeast Wisconsin. Genuinely dangerous out there. Heat index values of 95 to 105 degrees are expected across that region. Highest readings in far northeast Wisconsin. Far northeast Wisconsin catches the worst of it. Heat index near 105 degrees through Tuesday evening. No break in sight. Even overnight, heat indices only drop to 70 to 75 degrees. Still hazardous for anyone without air conditioning. That overnight heat index of 75 is what catches people off guard. The body never gets its recovery window. Green Bay, Wausau, Rhinelander, and Sheboygan are all under that advisory. Drink water, stay inside, check on your neighbors. Heat stroke is an emergency in conditions like these. NWS recommends frequent rest breaks in shaded or air-conditioned spaces. Montana has been hitting triple digits out west. 100-plus degrees in Billings is not a number you brush off. From Miles City to Glendive, temperatures are running well above average for July. The heat dome still has a grip. Wyoming, the western Dakotas, and parts of Nebraska are all baking under the same stubborn heat dome through Monday night. Here's where this story gets real interesting. That heat dome is starting to crack, and the consequences are serious. As the ridge erodes, a powerful upper-level trough charges south from Canada, heading straight for northern New England Tuesday. That trough arrives Tuesday evening and slams into warm, moist, unstable air that's been stewing across the region all day. This is not a typical summer thunderstorm setup. The ingredients coming together Tuesday are organized in a rare way. Strong northwesterly flow aloft is already cranking across New England at the start of the Tuesday forecast window. Models are picking up a perturbation ahead of the main cold front that could trigger early convection this morning. Any early storms may weaken over time, but that only delays surface heating and makes the late afternoon atmosphere more explosive. Delayed surface heating loads the atmosphere all afternoon, so by early evening, conditions are fully primed and ready to fire. Heating and moistening ahead of the cold front is sufficient for severe storm development by late Tuesday afternoon. Margaret and Lake Charles is watching Louisiana stays clear of this. But midweek brings a pattern shift your way, too. Initial development is expected along the front in southern Quebec Tuesday afternoon, so Canada fires first on this one. Those storms push south and east into Vermont and northern New York during the early evening, roughly 5 to 7 p.m. Strongest lift in the enhanced risk zone kicks in after 9 p.m. That's exactly when the peak threat window opens. New England faces a severe storm threat from roughly 3 p.m. Tuesday all the way through early Wednesday morning. That's a 10-plus hour severe weather window, and with supercells in play, the threat can be extremely concentrated. Here's the science. 2,500 to 3,000 joules per kilogram of MLCAPE near the Canadian border by Tuesday afternoon. Translation, that's an enormous amount of atmospheric fuel, enough to support vigorous rotating thunderstorm updrafts across the region. By early Tuesday evening, roughly 2,000 joules per kilogram of MLCAPE still persist across a large portion of the region. So that instability doesn't just spike and crash, it holds together through the entire cold front passage into overnight hours. 2,000 joules of atmospheric fuel at midnight straight up. Tuesday night in Vermont is no ordinary storm day. Pair that instability with 50-plus knots of effective shear, and you've got the full supercell recipe locked in tight. That shear is oriented perpendicular to the cold front boundary, aligned exactly right to support discrete supercell development. Perpendicular shear means storm energy feeds efficiently into rotating updrafts rather than getting shredded apart by the wind field. Basically, the atmosphere over Vermont and northern New York Tuesday night is about as organized as a July storm setup gets. SPC does not issue enhanced risk outlooks casually. 474,000 people inside that enhanced zone is a very serious signal. That enhanced risk covers 23,875 square miles from northern Vermont through extreme northern New York and into far western Maine. Frank in Springfield is asking about Illinois Frank. You're clear of this one. But text those Vermont relatives tonight. Burlington, Vermont sits inside the enhanced risk area. Tuesday night is not the time to be outside there. Plattsburgh and Messina, New York, are also inside that enhanced bullseye. Both border communities are deep in the hot zone. Colchester and South Burlington round out that enhanced zone. 474,000 people in the northern Vermont corridor tonight. Surrounding that core is a slight risk covering 1.1 million people across much of central and southern Maine. Lewiston, Bangor, Augusta, Auburn, and Waterville. All 5 of those main cities fall inside the slight risk zone Tuesday. Portland, Maine, falls inside the marginal risk boundary, still worth watching, but the primary severe threat is further north. Concord, New Hampshire, also clips into marginal territory, so isolated strong storms are possible for the state capital Tuesday night. Manchester and Nashua sit on the southern fringe of this setup. Monitor your local forecast closely as Tuesday evening develops. Stack all 3. Risk levels: 3.37 million people across New England are under some form of storm threat Tuesday. That's 474,000 enhanced, 1.1 million slight, and 1.8 million marginal. Massive geographic footprint for a single midsummer event. From the Vermont-Quebec border south through the New Hampshire state line Tuesday is absolutely the day to watch. Now here's the part of this forecast that really demands your attention. The tornado signal across northern New England. Low-level hodographs across the enhanced risk zone support a genuine threat for a few tornadoes Tuesday evening for real. A strong tornado is on the table, conditional on a discrete supercell persisting into Tuesday evening without getting absorbed. That word discrete means a single isolated supercell with room to breathe and rotate without merging into a line. Margaret in Lake Charles has seen plenty of rotating storms, and what Vermont may see Tuesday is structurally the same thing, if that supercell holds together tracking south through Vermont. The low-level shear profile could spin up something very significant. Tornado possible, 2-inch hail on the table, and damaging bow echo winds, all of this in northern New England Tuesday night. Bowing structure threat kicks in wherever storm interactions force linear mode, and that transition can happen very fast. When a supercell bows into a line, surface wind speeds can spike to 60+ miles per hour in just minutes. That kind of wind takes down power lines, strips branches, turns roads into obstacle courses, and it happens fast. So for the Lake Champlain Valley, Burlington, Virgins, Middlebury, Tuesday night means weather radio on and charged. For Plattsburgh and Adirondack communities along the northern border, this is a take shelter when warned kind of night. No kidding. Good news, the cold front moved through relatively quickly, and Vermont should clear the storm threat by around 2 a.m. By about 2 a.m. Wednesday, the worst of the storm threat shifts northeast toward Maine and into Nova Scotia. Long Tuesday evening, but by sunrise Wednesday, the severe threat is largely over for Vermont and upstate New York. Maine gets a trailing edge. Bangor and Augusta could still see active weather pushing east through early Wednesday morning. Portland catches the tail end, probably some gusty storm activity in that 4 to 7 a.m. Wednesday morning window. Let's talk specifically about that hail threat, because 2-inch diameter hailstones are not just a minor inconvenience. 2-inch hail, roughly quarter to golf ball size dense car hoods, breaks windshields, and strips shingles clean off rooftops, with those massive CAPE values powering the updrafts. Hailstones have plenty of time to grow while suspended aloft. Strongest supercell updraft cores could push hailstones well above 2 inches in diameter if they hold together Tuesday evening. Earl in western South Dakota's tuned in. Earl, your biggest concern today is that brutal heat dome, not the storms. That contrast between Earl's heat and Vermont's supercell threat shows exactly how complex Tuesday's national weather map really is. Montana thread is next, because southern Montana has its own marginal risk severe storm setup developing for Tuesday evening. Before Montana, comment your city below and let us know where you're watching from. Let's see the map light up. Montana's setup is driven by a surface low developing in eastern Montana and Wyoming, pulling moisture in from multiple directions. Low-level moisture advects westward along a stalled surface boundary, so the storm environment across the state gets complex quickly. 30 to 35 knots of effective shear supports marginal supercells and linear segments across central Montana on Tuesday evening. MLCAPE values of 750 to 1,250 joules per kilogram, enough for organized storms, well below New England's explosive numbers. North of that surface low, there's a belt of greater surface moisture, low 60-degree dew points, advecting into the higher terrain. That's the spot where surface-based supercells could develop independently and where local tornado probability ticks slightly higher. Sandra in Alexandria checks in. DC stays quiet today, but that cold front clips your region by Wednesday morning. Central Montana, between Great Falls and Billings, is the focal zone to watch for discrete supercell development Tuesday evening. Morning model solutions are consistent high-based thunderstorms forming over southern Montana mountains, then tracking northeast overnight. Along I-94 from Billings east toward Miles City, those storm clusters are crossing your path through Tuesday night into Wednesday. Billings, Montana's largest city, sits inside the marginal risk for Tuesday, so outflow wind damage is the main threat there. Great Falls also clips the marginal risk area, so north-central Montana is not left out of Tuesday's storm picture. Bozeman and Livingston sit near the storm initiation zone, so those mountain communities could see early high-based cells fire overhead. Missoula is on the western fringe. Isolated gusty storms are possible, but organized severe weather is unlikely that far west. For Montana Tuesday, heads-up day. Not a cancel plans day, but keep your weather app within arm's reach all evening. Zoom back to the national map, and this three-zone setup is part of a bigger pattern that's fundamentally shifting today. That upper-level ridge baking the northern plains for days is finally showing signs of weakening and pulling back northward. So the heat crushing Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas, that dome is finally beginning to lose its grip. As the ridge erodes, troughs dig more aggressively along the west coast and push inland. That's the engine of change. Tuesday's New England trough is the first major signal, and a second trough follows behind it later in the week. That second trough brings another round of storm chances to the northern Rockies and possibly the upper Great Plains later on. Translation: the active storm pattern is just getting started, and if Monday seemed busy, just wait for what's coming. Arizona stays in the storm picture through midweek as monsoon flow keeps pulsing moisture northward from the Gulf of Mexico. Phoenix and Tucson will see afternoon storm chances pop up every day through midweek, basically no meaningful break at all. Flagstaff, sitting at 7,000 feet, catches the first mountain-based storms each afternoon before they spread down toward the desert. Down in Florida, the daily sea breeze pattern keeps afternoon thunderstorms cycling across the peninsula straight through midweek. Dale and Toledo circles back. The Great Lakes region gets clipped by that second trough by Wednesday. Heads up. Cleveland, Detroit, and Toledo could all see isolated storm chances by Wednesday as that trough finally reaches the Midwest. So the storm pattern gradually pushes east as the week progresses. Fairly typical late July timing, but with above average intensity. Let's take stock. 3 storm zones. 18.5 million in today's threat area and 474,000 inside Tuesday's enhanced bullseye. Basically, the active period building for days is now releasing all at once across multiple regions of the country. 3 storm zones, 18.5 million people today, 474,000 in the enhanced bullseye. Tuesday's the night to watch. New England hasn't seen a summer severe weather setup quite like this in a while. That's what makes Tuesday notable. Combining 3,000 joules of CAPE with 50-plus knots of shear in July, that's rare territory for northern New England. Most summer storms up in Vermont and Maine are garden variety heat events. This setup is structurally different and more organized. That's why SPC has the enhanced risk outlook up for Tuesday. They don't use that risk category lightly. If you have family in Vermont, Maine, or northern New York, Tuesday evening is absolutely check-in time for them. For Montana folks, Tuesday night means weather radio on, app charged, and don't ignore any warnings when they come through. Comment below, what region are you watching from, and which city should we dig into specifically for next time? Write the New England setup flagged at the top, enhanced risk zone, supercells, tornado potential, all of it. Full picture, 474,000 in the enhanced core, 3.37 million at risk overall. Cold front after midnight Tuesday night. Looking through mid-July, the pattern stays active, rounds of storms cycling through every 3 to 4 days nationwide. Good news for heat-weary folks in the northern plains. Tuesday's cold front drops temperatures 15 to 20 degrees. Bismarck, Fargo, and Sioux Falls will all feel considerably more comfortable behind that front by Wednesday morning finally. Montana cools behind that front as well. The triple-digit stretch finally breaks for billing sometime Wednesday afternoon. Wyoming and the western Dakotas follow suit. The heat dome finally losing the grip it's had on the region. Earl in western South Dakota, that cool down you've been waiting on arrives your way by Wednesday morning. Earl! Behind all this storm activity, there's a real relief story building for everyone beaten up by the heat lately. Wisconsin's heat advisory covering northeast and north central Wisconsin through Tuesday expires when that cold front finally clears. After that front pushes through Wisconsin Tuesday night, temperatures slide back into the low 70s by Wednesday, major relief. Green Bay, Wausau, and Rhinelander finally see a real break by Wednesday morning after days of dangerous, draining heat. So Tuesday is the storm day, Wednesday is the recovery day, and that relief is a big deal for many. One more thing to track, fire weather out west continues to be a serious concern in some areas today. Low humidity and gusty outflow winds from those Arizona storms could create critical fire weather conditions across the desert southwest. Any storm that produces gusty outflow without significant rainfall is a fire risk in that terrain, and it happens often. So firefighting resources across Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Utah are on standby throughout this active storm period. Real talk heat in Wisconsin, supercells in Vermont, fire weather in Arizona, all happening on the same Tuesday. That's the mid-July snapshot, and it's exactly the kind of pattern that forecasters pay very close attention to nationwide. New England's enhanced risk zone stands out most on the Day 2 outlook. Highest risk level posted anywhere Tuesday. Enhanced risk above slight means SPC expects a clustering of severe storms with significant widespread impacts tonight. Significant means it's not scattered garden variety activity, it's organized, capable of real infrastructure damage across a large area. So Burlington, Plattsburgh, Messina, Colchester have a shelter plan ready before Tuesday afternoon. That's the most important message. For New Hampshire and Maine, even in the slight and marginal zones, don't write off Tuesday as a quiet night. Bangor residents should have their plans set by Tuesday afternoon. Knowing where your nearest sturdy shelter is matters tonight. Margaret knows what it means to take a storm advisory seriously. That's exactly the mindset for New England tonight. Forecasters issued this enhanced risk outlook in the morning and held through the afternoon update that signals confidence. Holding a risk level through 2 model runs with updated guidance means they're confident in this forecast. Take it seriously. Bring it home, 18.5 million in today's storm zone. 474,000 inside Tuesday's enhanced bullseye. That's the full picture. 50-plus knots of shear. 3,000 joules of fuel. Cold front after midnight. New England is locked and loaded. Tuesday is not the day to be casual about weather in Vermont. Maine or northern New York take it seriously. Montana handles its own marginal setup. Arizona keeps its storm cycle going, and Florida stays in the daily storm pattern. And the heat dome baking Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas finally breaks down behind Tuesday's cold front Wednesday morning. 3 zones. One Tuesday, 474,000 in the bullseye, 50 knots of shear, 2-inch hail, no joke. If you're in Vermont tonight, check your weather app one more time before bed. Just do it. Seriously. When warnings drop across the enhanced risk zone, that's your signal to move inside and stay there until it passes. 18.5 million in today's zone. 474,000 in Tuesday's bullseye, and you knew this storm was going to matter. Stay weather aware across New England tonight. 3,000 joules of atmospheric fuel plus 50 knots of shear does not miss.